Almost 3/4 of the Earth's surface is hidden under an azure curtain of the seas, oceans, that are covered with a web of rivers. For us, this is an unknown world that we have just started to explore. A lot of unusual plants live in its depths. They live in a world of extremes and limitless diversity, and their appearance has taken shape. The water element is replete with untold stories, unsolved secrets, and unseen creatures. Delving into the world where life has acquired the most bizarre and magnificent forms, we're amazed by the extent to which nature can be inventive. This place sheltered mysterious and exotic plants in the Kiev Botanical Garden, named after the academician Fomin. Without realizing that not every water element can be suitable for life, the scientists transferred the local plants from a terrestrial habitat to an aquatic one. This is the reason that in very cold rivers there are almost no water plants. There are none in the upper Amazon, where it is too hot. The plants don't live in rivers where the acidity index is too high or the current is too fast. Therefore, the appearance of the inhabitants who once got into this water world changed forever. Many of them, adapting to the conditions, have become evolutionary curiosities.
Мхи и папоротники приобрели ряд уникальных адаптаций, и среди них
Moss and ferns have gained a number of unique adaptations. They can accumulate air in their tissues, leaves, petioles, stems, and even seeds. A few drops of air and thousands of seeds of the water lily, which were removed, float on the surface of the water and are carried by over a long distance.
на далекие-далекие расстояния.
Like all that lives, water plants breathe, and if there is not enough oxygen, which is absolutely not surprising for a reservoir, then these water plants have to accumulate water. This is no different from the natural process when cacti absorb water simply in order to survive.
Для того, чтобы хоть как-то
We
представить,
will now show how a plant accumulates air on the example of a water lily stem.
как кувшинки.
In the same way, plants adapt to survive at different depths, releasing leaves that differ in size and even multiply without blooming in the process of vegetation, and developing their roots, stems, and leaves. However, in extreme conditions, thick roots are also needed for flowering plants in order to accumulate nutrients from the soil.
Нимфея цирулей, она имеет клубень, который
Nymphea cerulea has a tuber that grows in the form of beads.
передает
From one to another, the tubers transfer nutrients. Plants in the waters of the Nile River are specific and are associated with the pharaohs.
фараонами.
It was exactly this plant that was minted on coins, not the lotus that was brought in the 5th century.
Цирулею.
That is Nymphea cerula, or in lake terms known as the Nile blue
На
lotus.
самом деле это цирулея. Она чеканилась на монетах.
Egyptians turned to the Nymphaeas for predictions. The abundance of water lilies on the water surface promised a good harvest. The Fomin collection of greenhouses is now decorated with 18 species of various tropical immigrants from Africa, Australia, and America. In spring, they're just starting to wake up. One of the first settled representatives of the Amazon is the largest water lily in the world, with a leaf that is 2 meters high. In 1959, in order to create favorable conditions for it and other aquatic inhabitants, a 5-meter pool was built in the greenhouse of the Kiev University. Over time, the complex has replenished 4 more reservoirs. Now, besides floating and growing in water, plants that have taken root in the soil of the reservoir have also found shelter. Among them is the earth rice, rare cereal preferring the water element.
То, что мы постарались это объединить в какой-то
The fact that we try to combine different plants with different requirements in suggested conditions means that the reservoirs should be large enough.
достаточно большими. И к ним надо
They should be treated as natural reservoirs in order to achieve the necessary soil characteristics and the required level of saturation with aquatic plants. They cleanse the water naturally, and of course the animal component, which proves that the water is clean and potable.
что вода действительно у нас чистая.
Multicolored guppies, barbs flashing between the flexible stems of the water depths barely noticeable on the green islands of Daphnia leaves. Cyclops and croaking frogs complement the artificially created ecosystem. At the same time, these demonstrate that this aquatic environment is suitable for living, even for the most rare and extraordinary plants.
И среди них самым уникальным для насекомоядных растений, которые тоже есть в воде, это
The most unique among insectivores, which also grow in water, are utricularias. It has a specific structure.
Сам ловчий аппарат называется всасывающий. Так вот, это самый быстрый ловчий аппарат в мире. Он всасывает в себя всех...
The trap is called a suction device. This is the fastest trapper and sucks up all the insects that live in the water, Daphnia or Cyclops, or even other crustaceans that live and swim in water.
Которые также присутствуют в виде мелких-мелких водорослей.
Insectivorous plants, which have turned their stalks and leaves into deadly traps, can dissolve and assimilate the bodies of their victims, and most important is that they have developed unique ways to lure their prey. After all, they do not have fast legs or sharp fangs, but they are very cunning. The rainforest dweller Nepenthes, also known as a tropical pitcher plant, lures the victim with its color, smell, and nectar. It was given its name for the particular shape of the leaves, which resemble a jug. They are large enough to become a trap for small animals and amphibians. There are insectivorous creatures that are capable of catching large animals, and not only insects, but amphibian mice. This is typical of Nepenthes. They have a very strong proteolytic enzyme. Like any plants, Nepenthes during spring awakening is not very active and its pitchers are safe, as is the trap apparatus of the sundew, villi with sticky droplets. These insectivores as a rule grow in places that are poor in mineral substances and acid soils. This way the plant compensates for the lack of nutrients by feeding on insects. The victim, attracted by the smell of pseudo-dew, sits on a leaf and sticks to it. However, in a fight with an animal for life or for death, the plant may be the winner, not having a dexterous apparatus. The huge sharp spines on the leaves of a cycad don't even allow for it to be touched. Encephalartos from Africa is the pride of Fomin's botanical garden collection. No one knows how old this prickly plant is. According to experts, the estimated age of this exotic plant is about 200 years.
Есть легенда.
We know that this specimen was brought by the famous Ukrainian sugar baron and philanthropist Tereshchenko when he traveled to Africa.
Сахарозаводчик, известный меценат Терещенко,
He brought to Ukraine two different types of encephalatus and presented them to the botanical garden.
ботаническому саду.
In size, the encephalatus grows very slowly, although over the past 40 years, after the reconstruction of the greenhouse, it has increased by 3 to 4 times. As a dioecious plant, this thorny giant can multiply only under the condition of pairwise coexistence. But in nature, it is most often alone, which is why encephalatus becomes rare and endangered. In the greenhouse is presented the only female plant. Pollinate with no male is impossible.
Девочки сейчас есть шишка, она готова к опылению, но пыльцы мы
The
достаточно.
shea plant has a lump and is ready to pollinate, but we cannot get the pollen. Therefore, a pine cone grows for 6 months, then crumbles and doesn't bring any result to the population of these plants.
Для популяции этих растений.
The largest encephalartos in Ukraine is a worthy specimen under closed glass at the European level. A record holder in size and age, it is a prominent representative of the Psychodophyta species. These are plants that belong to gymnosperms because there is a lump, but are not coniferous as there are no characteristic needles. Psychus revoluta is also one of them, although what is very interesting is their luxurious crown of dissected leaves very much resembles a palm tree.
Он относится к саговникам, потому что у этого растения
It refers to the cycads, as it has a lump or a megastrobe. Now you cannot see it, because it appears only over the course of every 3 years.
года примерно. Эти растения очень уникальные, потому что действительно похожие на пальму.
The plant is unique and grows slowly. It is 150 years old.
Конкретно 150 лет.
Cycads appeared in the Paleozoic era, actively grew in the Mesozoic era, and today have become endangered. They're newcomers from the past, slender and similar to spruce and Araucaria. Once this conifer was the main food for Diplodocus dinosaurs. In nature, Araucarias are preserved only in Australia and New Zealand. A hothouse jungle for them is a comfortable haven in which they do not have to survive. Moreover, the soft needles will not protect them. Unlike conifers, their needles have long grown together into leaves, which create a dense crown of a deciduous tree.
Это достаточно большие деревья.
These are quite large trees. In New Zealand, there are such trees that are almost 3,000 years old.
Уже практически 3000 лет.
Together with the conifers and cycads in this greenhouse, there is another relic, a well-known fern. This cosmopolitan is found everywhere, in the tropics and in our moist, shady forests. They grow in the mountains and arid deserts, and some of them are swinging under the greenhouse ceiling or are attached to pipes and walls. What is interesting is that the deer horn doesn't even look like a fern. Both the horns and the basket from which it grows are different types of its leaves.
У плетицериума или эпифитов таких у них два типа листьев.
Platycerium has two types of leaves, rounded or kidney-shaped once attached to the trunks and branches of a tree with lower and side edges, while the top edge remains free. A pocket is formed and garbage accumulates there. But what trash can there be in a forest? Sprigs, leaves, dried insects and bird droppings? Rainwater gets there. All this gradually rots and some kind of a human-like substrate is formed.
Перегнивает, образуется гумусоподобный субстрат. Туда прорастают корни.
The roots of these ferns sprout there, and then new leaves start to grow on top of the old ones. The old leaves decompose, and that means that nothing is wasted. On other leaves, which are similar to the antlers of deer or elk, spores are formed. While they grow, they give life to new generations. In nature, such baskets are so heavy, tens of kilograms, that the three branches to which they're attached often break. But this is the only harm they can cause. Ferns are harmless but mysterious. Maybe that's why on the night of Ivana Kupala, people go out trying to find their flowers. People always connected legends and myths to plants, while the undiscovered world of exotic newcomers was completely enshrouded in mystery, but the curtain could always be drawn. So travel with us to discover the unexplored Ukraine.